Hey there guys, another video, and this one on how to increase your bench press but with, a little bit of information that you may have not heard before. So one of the tips or bits of advice that I'd like to give you that you really wouldn't have heard anywhere else is how to distinguish between being truly weak off the chest versus being weak at lockout. Now, depending upon the lifter and the style of grip that you take, as well as the arch, does play, a huge role in this. So an example would be as follows. Say, for instance, I hit a heavy max single or, an AM rep set and, basically work very close to failure. What I want you to do, or what you need to look at, look over the video and find out how long you're holding the bar in your hands, from, lift out to, the rack command. It doesn't matter if it's a single or a working set. Then what you need to do is load the same weight, hold it for that length of time, plus an additional 30 count. Now, if you can't hold it for the additional 30 count, at lockout, safe to say, your shoulders and triceps are really struggling to hold the load. Now, that's a general, way of looking at it. If you can hold it comfortably, for the 30 count plus a bit extra and it's not too taxing, then, using rack holds as a method to increase your bench press probably isn't going to be a very good way of going about it. But, if you've done the rack hold and it was extremely difficult, or you couldn't hold it for a 30 count, then looking at, rack holds as a means to increase your bench press is going to be, a useful tool until you've got the strength to do that. Now, this is where the bench press grip you have, makes a really big difference. If you're a very narrow grip, on the bench, and you set up, with a very narrow setup as well, and you lift the weight over the bar and your arms are pretty much straight up and down, you should find, holding that load is going to be very easy. If you're someone that takes a really wide grip or has a huge arch, look at the angle, in the video of where your humerus is in relation to the rest of your upper body. If it's abducted out to the side by quite a great extent, then there is a possibility that working more on the mid-range of your bench press, as a rack hold, is going to have far more carryover than the, traditional rack holds at the top. A lot of people, think lockout is only, weak, triceps or shoulders. But if you've got a huge arch and your arms are, abducted all the way out to the side, there is a lot of stress running through your chest, and, your pecs still have to work ridiculously hard. So it could be, your chest just isn't strong enough in that joint angle, as opposed to putting heaps and heaps of effort just into triceps and shoulders. So that's, something you need to take into consideration. Also, when you bench press, look to see if your elbow joint passes the midline of your body and goes, quite some distance down past the bench. If it does, you're going to be a lifter that's going to benefit greatly from developing your upper back and lats in general. And that's simply because once your elbow has passed the midline of your body, you're in a position of extension, but, your arms are out to the side, they're abducted. If you tense your lats, you'll notice, if you're in that position, your elbow is going to drift back towards the center line of your body. You're able to use your lats to help adduct the weight to that point. So, in the very, very base position of a bench press, you can, definitely use your lats to help you lift the weight. It's not, the conventional rowing that you would have thought of, but it's more, staying tight and tensing the lats isometrically to help bring your elbow back to the midline. So this is why developing a big back is going to have carryover for bench press. If you're someone that has a huge arch, your elbow joint may not pass, the midline of your body, and, working heavily on your back and upper back isn't going to give you the same carryover. But again, everyone's different. The assistant exercises that I've shown in this video, there are a few of my staples that I use to send my bench press north. My primary upper body exercise, for the anterior aspect of the body is always going to be bench press. It's the most weight that, you can lift with your upper body. Then, for your upper body again, but posterior, the main staple I have for that is pull-ups. I value the pull-ups over the rows simply because, later in the week I'll have to squat, and if I've already pre-fatigued my lower back, by doing heavy rows, it's not really that productive for the rest of my training. I'd rather work my lats in a way that isn't going to tax my lower back, and also the CNS fatigue is very, very minimal, so that's another aspect that I take into consideration. Same thing goes with, this variation of the one arm shoulder press. There's quite a lot of leaning to the side, but a lot of it's just a lateral, flexion. With a traditional barbell, if I'm leaning back, the spinal extension is quite taxing. And again, that's going to have a knock-on effect to my, squats and deadlifts. Not saying it's necessarily, a negative thing, but at the end of the day, these are just additional things that are pre-fatiguing my body, compared to the movements that I actually want to do. If I've done, my squats and deadlifts and I have energy and I wanted to muck around and do those exercises, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and do it. And sometimes I have, but it's not really how I would structure my training. I just try and pick the exercises that are going to have the most carry over to what I need with the minimum amount of impact onto the other lifts. Now, shrugs, they're another exercise that I use for bench press, and that's simply because when I set up on the bench, I retract my scapula, I stay tight, and a lot of that isometric contraction of the upper back, rhomboids are involved as well, but my traps for me tend to do the majority of the work. It's just how I'm put together, and it's just something that feels comfortable. So, obviously, if my traps have grown from bench pressing, chances are if I develop my traps further, through shrugs and carries and other, similar sort of exercises, it's going to have, carryover to my bench press. And this was just me, doing pull-ups. As I said, they're one of my staple exercises that I use for back. And yes, your arms do get a decent workout as well. So just a very easy all-round movement. If you guys have watched this video, you get an idea of what I do in terms of the assistant exercises. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, have a great day wherever you are, and hit like and subscribe.